Good morning, everyone. My name is Roger Perry, and I'm an associate director with the TMT product team at S&P Market Intelligence. It is my pleasure to join you today to share some of the perspectives and insights from 451 Research, our technology research group that focuses on enterprise technology and innovation. To serve as a starting point to today's panel discussion covering the consumer's relationship with technology, I have prepared a compilation of some of the findings that our research has captured on this topic, narrowing down on the need of companies to ensure data privacy and convey trust to ensure success. So let's frame the problem first. In this slide, you will see that nearly half, 46% of consumers have reservations about sharing their personal data online. Yet only 8% of business report having a dedicated data privacy team and that has primary responsibility for data privacy and data protection. So these are findings from the 451 research surveys earlier last year. So this points to two things. So first is that trust is a key issue on the consumer side, but more people are seeing it as unavoidable. So 39% of them said that they would prefer to stay private. Overall, 81% have some degree of concern with sharing their data online. That's a 1% increase from the previous year. And then the second point is that businesses can be better prepared to win loyalty, establish consumer trust, and view data as an asset for retention. Currently, many organizations are instead putting these data protection privacy responsibilities on their IT teams. These are teams that are already stretched too thin and not usually well equipped to interpret complex legal and ethical needs. There's essentially a lack of dedicated leadership in many cases, which is problematic. So in this next slide, you will see that governments are reacting to this need, enforcing data privacy regulation. So the EU GDPR has been the main reference for data privacy regulations since it was adopted in 2018. And our Voice of the Consumer surveys point to a belief by consumers that more regulation is needed. So it is no surprise that new regulations have been launched since. We have the California CCPA, UK GDPR, and most recently, the China Personal Information Protection Law, PIPL. So this, of course, carries implications for tech companies. There is an adaptation of current practices. There will be a need of creation of new compliance roles, so costs are likely to increase, and there will be an impact on the top line that is unavoidable. So to illustrate the implications of such regulations, I am highlighting an October report by our Market Intelligence news desk, which is on the right-hand side here. The report follows new China regulation around not just data privacy, but also the use of algorithms. So it highlighted that this is a sign of market maturing. On September 29 of last year, the Cyberspace Administration of China, so China's internet regulator, said it will set up governance rules for companies that use algorithm technologies within the next 3 years. So points highlighted include the consent and clear communication about the capture of biometric information, such as facial recognition, and addressing the issue of algorithmic discrimination. So especially focusing on cases where different prices were offered to different users based on online behavior. So with customers now able to opt out and their recommendation engines becoming less powerful, these companies like ByteDance and Tencent, who have advertising as a large component of revenues, will need to adapt. However, user retention and usage time can be boosted. So for example, investing in more content, so there's more choice. These are the protective measures or defensive measures that the companies can take. And these new rules could also provide opportunities for third parties, new companies, who help these big players with data management. So going to the next slide, I'll take you through where the consumer stands in this topic. So our team has grouped respondents to our consumer survey into three personas: the careful, the complacent, and the carefree. So they should be self-explanatory. So each requires a varying degree of convincing to take part in the offering. Most of them are gravitating towards the middle, so towards the complacent, and in which case they reluctantly share their data, but they see it as unavoidable to make use of the services online. So as consumers become more distrustful of third-party cookie tracking, brands and merchants must execute on a plan to adapt to a cookie-less future. The study suggests that companies who empower consumers with greater agency over their privacy online via a more direct route for management or oversight of their digital identity is a differentiator driving loyalty. While data privacy and security are top of mind for many consumers, managing this can be complex and difficult, adding friction to the digital experience, which is what we don't want. So let's move on and touch on a busy chart that summarizes the findings of this survey I referred to. So you can see first that security is a top concern over privacy. Consumers are unlikely to pay for safety, so they see the vendors as responsible for this, and that's why the tech vendors need to take responsibility. In aggregate, a number I mentioned before, 81% are concerned, and the split in the center chart is showing that more of them have reservations, but they see it as unavoidable about sharing their data, that is. More consumers realize the value of sharing their data for an enhanced experience, and fewer do not see any value and prefer to stay private. So how does technology address this? So talking about e-commerce specifically, the key strategies that emerge that can help brands overcome friction points across in-store and online. So consumer respondents cite that their online shopping experience is improved if there are product reviews and ratings, detailed product information and specifications, convenient cross-channel options, for example, buy online and pick up in store, and better search capability, so they find what they're looking for. And then the other aspect is improving in-store experiences, including, for example, being able to check inventory online before you go to the store, redeeming exclusive promotions and rewards, and having a fast and convenient payment mechanism with potentially multiple options available. In the next slide, so leaving behind this, the state of affairs, we look at the trends. So going forward, what are these trends? So at the beginning of every year, 451 Research puts out these trend reports. And I wanted to highlight 2 points that are relevant to these meetings. Those reports cover much more, but I wanted to touch on 2 points. So the first one is that AI will eventually become regulated around the world. So China, as we mentioned, is leading the way with passing key legislation, and companies are expected to begin taking note and making preemptive adaptations in expectation of more regulation globally. So for this, it is worth mentioning the potential governance and social concerns that arise with the use of data and AI in particular. So while AI, machine learning, is generally perceived as having a positive impact on society as a whole, there are questions over ethical use cases for AI, such as facial recognition and user profiling, as well as issues related to the responsible use of models, including fairness, inclusiveness, reliability, safety, transparency, accountability. And then there's the energy element, energy efficiency of large-scale deep learning models. And then the second point that we have here, the second trend, is that data security, data privacy, and data governance are converging and are no longer distinct categories of functionality. So vendors are responding to this need to facilitate clients to leverage the data, but in a safe and compliant way. This means there's an opportunity for companies playing in the space. So finally, let's move to the takeaways. And here, it's a summary of what we discussed. So first one is that data privacy is increasingly important to a majority of consumers. Second, that regulations will place a higher onus on tech companies to govern and protect data. And thirdly, that those who gain the consumer trust, simultaneously reducing the friction in the user experience, will end up the winners. So thank you for joining this session, and stay tuned for the panel discussion on the topic of technology and the consumer.